Well, the seasons are changing. We have a rainy day. I hear a tractor somewhere. Not sure what that's about, but find out in a minute, I'm sure. But I want to run the trains a little bit. And a couple years back, I had gotten this set right here, Lionel Alcos. They've got those can motors, you know, 2 motors per locomotive. You can see them in there somewhere. And they run pretty good, you know, for what they are. A little bit of flex on the bodies, but as far as pulling trains, they pull trains. One of the things that's going to happen over the next few weeks, possibly month, is we're going to build a whole second level of track. And that we're kind of roughing this out. I'm probably going to cut this back and braze it together properly. But we're just beginning to concept out what that's going to look like. Basically finding a metal shelf that we're going to cut down and basically have an upper layer of track. I think it'll look pretty cool. But anyway, back to my Alco. Now, the reason I was showing you those switches is when we started building the wiring, I took Romex, and this white wire on the Romex goes to the constant 14 volt pin on the transformer. And this one here would be common. This would be the variable voltage. I wired in a voltmeter, and I wired in an ammeter. One of the things I liked about these old Lionels, they're very inexpensive. You know, a lot of plastic on them, but they don't draw a lot of amperage, and they pull real hard for what they are. If you just want to have a train that run around in circles and entertain the kids. It's real hard to beat these things. But anyway, back to the wiring. So, because I have 3 wires within this Romex to work with, got one that's ground, obviously. That's the copper. And I have a circuit breaker in here because I'm going to eventually move this transformer off and put the variac on. And voltmeter across the variable voltage poles. And then an ammeter, what I did is I put that in line with the return. And gives me an idea of what the transformer is seeing for amperage. Right? But anyway, where I was going with that is you saw those switches over there going back and forth. Basically, when the train crosses a switch, if it was the wrong direction, it'll snap to the right direction as the train gets to it automatically. And at first we did that just having it powered by the track. So if I was going around at, say, 10 volts, that's all the switch had was 10 volts. And sometimes it wouldn't snap all the way to one side or the other. So I've got these blocks scattered around. There's one here, there's one over there, there's one over there. And that one and that one powers each of those 2 switches with a constant 18 volts. So now when the train gets to the rails, and since it's self-powered, the train basically makes the connection and it snaps the switch to the right direction quickly and completely because it has enough voltage to do so. So that's the nuance on the day. And also, instead of having 2 tracks back there, I got the switches. And that just makes things a little bit more interesting, where it never comes at you the same direction twice, right? Kind of goes back and forth those switches, and not randomly, but does pretty much go around in every possible direction. Makes it a little more interesting. And like I said, we're beginning to lay out this. But back to my Alcos. The reason I like these is because, for lack of a better word, they're expendable. Doesn't really matter. You just run them until they stop. I started pricing out replacement can motors and stuff like that. And the dummy actually has a spot to put the can motors. It's got all the gears and everything on the trucks. A replacement can motor for these is like 20 bucks. And but what comes to mind is I've had quite a few more locomotives come through the shop here, right? You know, these MTHs, they pull very, very, very well. But like this MTH back here, it's got the rubber tires and got one of those a little bit loose, so I have to replace those. Some of these old steamers run great, really good. And got them for just a little or nothing at an auction. And these Fairbanks Morse Train Masters, this one a Williams, that one a K-Line, they pull hard, but they're big. These two don't pull very well at all. I haven't quite figured out what their dilemma is. And these two here, they pull real well for what they are. But you know, the best running and best pulling set of locomotives I have are these two right here. Pull them out and put them on. Now, we put this together for fun a couple years back now, right? Let's just put them on. They're ugly. And this was about doing model railroading on the cheap when I first got into it. I got this set here for like $100. I've seen these go for like 50 at the auctions. But now I made this powered B unit. I left that little plate off so I can get some grease in there. This thing's a workhorse. I use it a lot when I'm doing DPU operations and stuff like that. I'm going to make one of those with a baggage car, I think. Just so it doesn't look like a DPU. Because they didn't have those back then, you know. There was no way of remotely operating the locomotives, you know, and back. But so remember that one a couple years back? Well, it puts a little less stress on it if I put this one on too, so I'm going to do that. And then let this one run a little bit. You know, they'll run all day like that. They're not drawing enough amperage to matter, so they don't get hot. Same with those. So all the locomotives I have save that 1K line and the 1 MTH, this one right here. Those are the best for pulling. Really something to say about those old Lionel Alcos. I know it's ugly. You know, I'm eventually going to get a couple of shells to make that look nice. You know, and pretty much all these run good. But one thing I have learned, these are the MPCs and they run pretty good. I got a pair of them. I'll run them next. But one thing I have learned, I think kind of the hard way, is that the steel gears on the post-war up until the mid-60s, they wear better and they don't have as many issues as the plastic gears do on these, the MPCs. And in particular, there's that little pinion gear that goes right between where the rear tire is, where you see the rubber band, and the drive gear. I have a couple where they're worn out, and I wore them out. Let me see if I can give you an example of that. So we ran these, and they've got the can motor design, right? 2 motors per powered unit. And then we ran my 1960s, late 50s, early 60s era magnet traction with both axles, magnet traction on that Boston and Maine. That's the best running set I've got. And the way they're set up is they got those larger diameter magnet traction axles, metal gears, and pretty much all the Alcos I have with that basic motor design, even the ones that have a lot of hours, run good. You know what I'm saying? So that's the best motor that I've got so far in the Lionel Alcos, is that pull more from the 50s into the 60s with the magnet traction on both axles, right? Well, this one right here has MPC era pull mores. And the problem I have with them, here it is. See how that pinion gear gets cocked? What happens is either the shaft that it rides on or the inside diameter wears and it gets going like that. Now this one still runs. I ran this for quite some time. You know, I had it going up and down the hill when I had the hill going up to the mountain. I believe that's what wore it out. It wasn't like that when I started, but after a season of going up and down the hill, it just wore that one right out. I've never seen that same kind of wear on the post-war late 50s, early 60s pull mores, just on these. But when they run pretty good. Smooth. But notice the amperage. Notice the voltage. So there you have it. 3 generations of Lionel Alcos. And like I said before, I do believe that while these run nice and smooth, that's the Achilles heel right there. Because these things run good. I mean, they really do. I like the adjustable tension on the armature right there. I can turn that screw in and keep it from lifting in as much as it normally would going in reverse, right? And but hopefully over the last couple of years you'll start beginning to understand why I just like these things. For low-cost model railroading, where the operations and having something that's reliable, just fun without breaking the bank, is really tough to beat those Alcos that have the from the 1958-9 into the early 1960s era Pullmores. You know, the sheet metal frame versus the earlier versions. And again, those. You flip them upside down, you see that fat axle? It's got those bronze bushings right there. See them? That's a rugged design. Now this cross shaft that holds that pinion gear also has the same style of bronze bushings. Now you can see it right there. These things were built to last, and they do, and they have. Which is why I like them. And they're fun. I prefer 027 on this layout just because of the size, so that helps. Now I prefer even the MPCs over these, even though these run good. But because of the way the truck is designed, the body rides a little higher. You know, looks a little goofy. But for me, that's my first choice. That's my second, and that would be my third. Now, when I'm just running, just to let it run, and you know, I just want to put time on it for, say, kids or visitors, that's my first choice, because I don't feel like wearing out my Pullmores. And those are pretty, but these are expendable, and they're reliable too. So, you know, actually there is one more generation, and that's these, where the Pullmore's up front. And I think they're designed to have the powered A be in back. I think that's how they're best. They perform the best. But I've had no good luck with these at all, making them run good. I don't know what it is. They just don't seem to have any power. And minimal traction. They look like they're rugged enough, right? But so this is yet another iteration of Lionel Alco. Let me see if I can put together this one where it actually does something.